be in orbit.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Geekosphere. This is Nathan, and I am joined, as usual, by my good friends PJ and Luke. PJ and Luke, how are you guys tonight?
Doing well.
I'm doing well as well.
Yes, we are doing well, and this is the way.
This is the way.
Yes, this is the way.
I have spoken.
He has spoken. I was going to save that for the end, but thanks for doing that now.
You're welcome.
Yeah, all right.
We didn't rehearse anything at all.
We did not rehearse anything at all. So, hey, we are coming back to you after a long hiatus because there's been a lot going on, the holidays and whatnot. But as we would like to institute as a little bit of a regular portion of our programming, we're going to catch you guys up before we jump into our topic for the night, which of course is The Mandalorian.
So good. So good.
So good. Star Wars Western, basically The Searchers. We love it. There's a child involved. There's a John Wayne, which we'll get to that in a minute, the John Wayne connection to The Mandalorian.
Ooh,
Yes.
I'm actually curious about this.
You do not know the John Wayne
Same.
connection to
I don't
The
think I
Mandalorian?
know the John Wayne
okay,
connection.
so there is a John Wayne connection.
I don't know what
To
the
be
John
continued.
Wayne connection.
Yes, and so I will keep you updated. So anyway, as we wanted to start off each episode, I think what we'll do is we'll go around the table and ask you, since we haven't been together in a while, what are you guys into? What has been your regular involvement lately? I know we can get into things and spend a lot of time in them. So what have you been geeking about in the last couple of weeks?
I'll start. Right before Christmas, I got accepted into the public preview of Xbox's xCloud.
Oh, cool.
Which
okay.
is their game streaming service. Sort of their, they've got actually two different flavors of it. It's a cloud streaming service where you
Okay.
can stream from a list of games they have available on the cloud. I can
Okay.
stream anywhere. Or they also have what they call console streaming, which you could already do with your PC.
Yes.
Where you could like just play a game on your PC streamed from your local Xbox. But now you can do that to your phone as well. It's only Android, so sorry, Apple folks.
Yeah, whatever.
And also, you have to be
Wah.
accepted into the Insider program, which apparently I'm
You're special.
blessed enough.
You're blessed and special to be a part of the Insider program.
So I tried it out in a bunch of different ways. Got really nerdy and took it to work with me. So imagine.
Hold on. Is taking a video game to work a nerdy thing or is it a productive thing?
Well, and at lunch break.
Lunch
But,
break. Okay.
So I'm in the lunchroom and there's a lot of people around me, and I've got my Iron Man Xbox controller.
Sweet.
And
Which
then
I've seen and it's awesome.
and then a stand with my phone on it, and I'm playing Ace Combat 7, which not
So
a bad
my
game.
My head, I'm thinking of the scene in The Office when he just like pushes the wall down and he just puts his feet up and eats Cheetos and plays video
Yes.
games.
Office
That's
Space,
what
you
I'm
mean?
thinking.
Yeah, an Office Space.
If
Yeah.
it was my last week there, that might be how I go out. But
That would be awesome.
but it streams well over Wi-Fi.
Okay.
A few hiccups here and there. I've played probably 5 or 6 different games on it. Played Forza Horizon 4, which, a racing game where you have to have pretty quick reaction times. Worked pretty well over Wi-Fi. Ace Combat, another one where you have to be, you're flying a jet and dogfighting. It's definitely not, there's some lag here and there. There's some hiccups here and there. But all in all, I've been very impressed with it.
Okay.
And I did double check with my NDA to make sure that I could share this. Share this.
Oh,
with you
really?
guys
Okay, so there is
before.
an NDA on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't stream it or take screenshots of it,
But you can discuss.
but I can discuss it on public forums or.
So is it the
podcasts.
full library?
No. So the plans are in the next year that they're going to open up xCloud to the entire Game Pass library.
Okay.
So if you have Game Pass, you can stream it anywhere. Then they're going to open it up to any game you own, whether it's Game Pass or you own the digital media, you will be able to stream it.
So you
over
can just stream
xCloud.
it to your phone.
Yeah,
So
anywhere.
you're going to take Fallen Order to work, aren't you?
Yeah.
But now I can't stream it to my Apple phone though.
Not yet. That's coming.
called an
That's
iPhone,
coming
Luke.
also.
Well, but he said Apple, so I
Yeah,
wanted to
Apple
be very
products.
Apple
Sorry,
products.
yeah. But that's coming. iOS is coming. I've been very impressed. The console streaming also works well, so you can stream anything you have on your home console
Okay.
as well. I haven't tried that over the internet yet. Just like over the internet, other than my home Wi-Fi.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's the next thing I want to try.
Okay.
How
long is
the
this
one
beta?
bad thing? They haven't put an end on it.
Okay, so this is
And they keep adding games to the xCloud. So
Okay.
like I'm getting to play games I don't actually own, like Ace Combat and a couple others. So I'm just in the preview right now, and so like I said, so far I've been very impressed.
that's cool.
It got a much better because they're calling it a preview and it's not an official launch like say Stadia. It's getting a much better reception from those who are using it than people who bought the $150 version and are playing Stadia and really disappointed.
Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. It's like anything that goes into an alpha and then a beta.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me in the video game just creation process how long things will stay in early access.
Oh, yeah.
For years. I mean, I play a couple games that they've been around for multiple years and are still in early access. You think about Fortnite.
Yeah.
Fortnite is still early access, and how much money are they making off that?
Oh, billions.
I know.
And the funny thing is, like Minecraft was in beta until not
Who
too long
knows?
ago. I
Yeah,
don't know exactly when, but
I played Minecraft. It feels like it's always in beta.
yeah,
Well, yes, it does. Beta Max.
Yes, exactly.
fun,
I feel like I'm
Yeah.
in 16-bit
it's
heaven.
so fun.
It is a fun game, and I like blowing things up in it.
But yeah, I've been very impressed with it. The only negative is it is a bandwidth hog. So
Really?
I played
Okay.
for about 15 minutes, and that was 700 meg of data.
Wow.
Yeah,
If you have unlimited data, then you're okay.
yeah. If you have
Except
unlimited
when they
data,
start
you're
throttling
fine.
you
Start
back.
throttling down.
Yeah,
How
I
about
could see me
battery?
chewing it up pretty
How
well.
about battery? on your phone?
Eats battery no more than watching a show on Netflix or
Okay.
Disney
Or like
Plus
playing a
anything.
Switch.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And
that's
yeah,
pretty good.
and so rumors are they're going to have an app for the Switch eventually, where you'll be able to play
Really?
xCloud via your Switch, because Microsoft and Nintendo have been playing well together lately.
Oh yeah.
Say, that's quite the partnership.
Yeah, they're not.
That's
yeah.
huge.
That
Well,
is
goodbye,
huge.
Sony.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole other.
That's a
topic,
whole
but-
other thing. So, all right.
But yeah, so that's what I've been playing that, and I did finish Jedi Fallen Order.
You did.
I have a review up on the site.
Yes.
But the go check out the review. But the short is, I really enjoyed that game.
Yes.
And if you enjoy video games and enjoy Star Wars, you should definitely play that game.
All right.
Yeah, Andrew got it for Christmas. I'm not even sure he's played very much of it. He's been mostly doing the NBA and NFL. But
It's hard.
it's pretty cool.
I've
but
heard
they
it's
have
hard.
a lot of difficulty levels that make it accessible if you're not a hardcore gamer.
Well, that's the thing is when you told me it was very Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Immediately I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to play because I'm just terrible at those.
So what my son is doing is he's playing through on what is Jedi Knight mode. So there's Grandmaster, Jedi
Okay.
Master, Jedi Knight, and then story mode.
Oh, okay.
He's playing on Jedi Knight mode until he gets to a boss.
And then he goes to
And then he
story?
goes down to story mode to take
Okay.
the boss out because the loading times are a little but that's what he's doing, and he's
Okay.
he's really
Okay.
enjoying the game.
Grandmaster, like you're the
I haven't even tried Grandmaster. I played it on
Grandmaster
Jedi Knight
Flash?
for most of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you're dead.
that would be my level.
Yeah.
Grandmaster
You die a
Flash.
lot, and yeah,
It's like playing expert mode in Guitar Hero.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, you're
well, that's
done.
why I haven't gotten it for my son because I'm worried he would just be frustrated and get rid of it because he plays a lot of Battlefront too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a much different. It's a much different feel. It's very slow, methodical.
Okay,
So
you can't just go hack and slash. You got to find the weakness. You got to get in there and
unless you go story mode, and then you
And
can
then
just
they can
kind
hack
of
and
go.
slash.
crazy.
Now, you
Okay.
did mention Battlefront 2. Now, didn't Battlefront 2 just release like a bunch of new worlds?
they
and
do
stuff
have a
like
few
that?
new things that go with
was pretty
Rise
cool.
of
I
Skywalker.
forget.
Yep. Yeah, they've been good about supporting that game.
Well, and it's
closely.
actually as the support has happened, its reviews have gone up since the original days. So it's a lot more fun now to play than it was.
they took a lot of the predatory microtransaction.
Yeah, the
type stuff out.
microtransactions are pretty much gone, and they're only cosmetic.
The article
which is how it should be.
the article I'd read though was they had sent out a brief to tell people to stop jumping into the Sarlacc pit
Yes, because
apparently that was a big thing. They would go and just jump into it.
yeah, well, somebody actually in Fallen Order, you can go in the Sarlacc pit, and somebody hacked it so that you can take a look around and see more of it.
Really?
Yes, so I thought that was fairly interesting. So, well, cool. Well, I'll keep my eye out for that. I'm PS4 and Switch right now, but it might be something I want to look into down the road.
Well, I'm still in television, so
Yes, he still is.
So when you talk about video games, PJ, it's not my shtick, So I mean, that's
okay.
pretty cool, though.
That's okay.
However, I will say that I'm into old school video games, and I was at the Consumer Electronics Show. So
Okay,
CES,
awesome.
Part of the job, so that was what I've been doing, is doing a lot of traveling for work recently. Christmas was crazy, but one of the things I loved at CES was Arcade 1-Up. Which does all the all the really cool old deluxe 8-in-1 games, and they've got so they had everything from early 80s all the way up until mid 90s. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, they're selling Ninja Turtles now, which I saw.
A bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff. So, but Burger Time and cool
Oh
old
my
games.
gosh,
So
Burger Time.
it was great to be able to see all those stuff. But other stuff they had there, of course, Sony booth had their release of their electric car.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool, pretty neat to
PS car.
Yeah, to PS car. Not PS. What would PS stand for, PJ?
PlayStation.
PlayStation car. Okay.
That's what
I was thinking something else. But
that too.
Oh,
that would be a
The
POS.
POS. Yeah.
yeah, it's POS. Yeah, you're missing a letter there.
Missing a letter. All right, but no, the CES was great. It was just a lot. Just if you've ever been to CES before, it is just enormous. There's 180,000 people in Vegas. It's the biggest trade show in the entire world, and you can see everything from. Mattress Firm was there. So
Really?
Connected mattresses are a big thing now. U.S. Postal Service was there talking. Delta was there. So not your typical companies, and actually the company that I work with, Intel, actually didn't have a booth. So some of the consumer electronic companies are actually backing off.
Okay.
So Microsoft and Intel, for instance, did not have a booth.
But that's interesting because even some of the movie companies are backing off the cons.
Right. Exactly.
And they're not using that as an outlet as much anymore.
No.
It seems like that's happening. There's news this week. PlayStation is not going to E3 this year.
That's
that's big.
So, yeah,
That's huge.
Well, they didn't go last year, but they're launching a new console this year. And
when you're not launching
year.
when you're launching a console and you don't go to
the
the
one
big
of the biggest
one.
entertainment shows in the world.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's mostly what I've been doing is working and traveling. Was in Orlando again last week.
What was the coolest thing you saw?
Probably the coolest thing was seeing Sony was there and they had a live setup with their. Of course, I'm going to totally butcher the name of the camera. They have a really cool live camera action that shoots almost. Oops! As I hit the mic with my hand, they hit it's motion picture style, but they're doing it right there on the set or there in the.
So it like the frame rate and everything.
Like the frame rate and everything looked beautiful, and I have a video. In fact, I'll put it up on the.
Put it up on the website. We'll get it up there
because it shows. So it had the original Ecto one from Ghostbusters.
Oh
84.
yes, I saw your pictures of this.
And they had a track, and so they would actually shoot the video, shoot the movie as they're going by. And then the really cool thing is in the background they had the hook and ladder company.
Yeah.
And they had buildings, but the buildings would actually, and you can't see this, but I'm moving my hands to show bigger and smaller. So as the camera
You had
got
perspective
closer,
in
it
it?
had perspective, and the screen would get wider, and then it would shrink back down again as the camera was moving.
Oh,
and they had
that's
stuff
awesome.
coming out of the grate. But what was the coolest part was that I got to see it was an actually original Ecto 1.
Oh, that's cool.
From the movie. So
that's
that was
really
probably
awesome.
the
Very
coolest
nice.
thing. I'm sure there was tons of other cool stuff, but that's the one that resonates in my head.
Awesome.
Off the top of my head.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nathan.
So you know what? Holiday was slow. Christmas was a little bit slow for us, except for the fact that we went to Colorado, kind of as a sort of last minute thing for a trip. But what I did do over Christmas was I knocked out season 4 of The Expanse. That was my big one, and It wasn't the strongest season, but still the weakest season of that show is better than about 70 to 80% of what's on TV right now.
Nice.
And if you follow it, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't follow it, then why not? You need to actually get on and start watching it. My only complaint, I think, from this season was that in its jump from sci-fi to Amazon. So the story of The Expanse is it's actually based on a series of, I think it's 9 books now. The first one is Leviathan Wakes, and it's basically I would say it's hard science space opera. So if you like hard sci-fi, it's a little more on the trying to be as realistic with the space travel and things like that. This is for you. But it's a big, grandiose, sweeping story, and they adapted it to a TV show in 2016, I believe. And they're on season 4, of course, and maybe it was 2015. But the first 3 seasons were just phenomenal, and they were on Sci-Fi. Well, then it got canceled because Sci-Fi had a really bad deal with first play rights and all this stuff. There was no syndication. They were just spending money, and so they canceled it. And then, of course, in one of the situations that it tends to happen from time to time, the fans got a hold of it, much like they did with Firefly petitions. And it turns out that Jeff Bezos is a huge fan of The Expanse.
Oh, that's funny.
So he bought it. Because when you own Amazon, you can buy whatever you want.
When you have billions and
billions of dollars. So he bought The Expanse and went into production. And it was a shorter season. I think it was a short 3 episodes, usually a 13-episode season. They did a 10-episode season, each an hour long. But what happened when it made the jump from Sci-Fi to Amazon is now the content restrictions are not as tight. And so what was originally a show, that was a mature show, subject matter, and it had, some language. Now they can drop F-bombs repeatedly. And it's like giving a child permission to cuss. And, I don't normally get offended by anything, and I wasn't offended by this, but I was like, okay, guys, at some point we've got to actually write some dialogue that is just actual dialogue and not essentially what are reaction statements that have the F word in them. And that's about 60% of the dialogue in this season. It's a little frustrating, only because it's such a smart show. Yeah. And I just felt like in doing that, we get it. You're under these stressful situations. We understand what's happening. Other than that, I mean, it's just continuing to be. And what they did was great with it was one of the things that happens in the books is you have characters who disappear for entire books.
Oh, wow.
Like they have other things going on and they focus on certain things. Well, what they had to do in the show is write story arcs for these characters because they want to keep them in the show. And so they came up with some pretty good ones. There was one that wasn't so great, but you got characters from one book. Now you get to see what's going on when you're in the other book, which you normally wouldn't have if they followed it to the letter of the law. And David Strathairn is fantastic. And he plays a character that in the book is awful and you hate him, but he plays the same character to give him a sympathetic arc, and he's became quickly my favorite thing on the show. And so definitely season 4, he kills it. But again, it's until, we got Picard coming out and
Picard, I know.
You got all that coming, which I don't have CBS, I think more people probably have Amazon than they do that. If you want sci-fi, watch The Expanse. I mean, it is. And I've been kind of its evangelist, for lack of a better word, of people to get out and watch this show because it's that good.
Expand your cranium.
Expand your cranium and watch The Expanse. And it's smart and it's funny and the action is great. And you get, some of it reminds me a lot of Galactica, the reboot.
Okay.
In terms of just the special effects and the space battle. But at the same time, it focuses on the central core of about 6 characters.
Okay.
And it's realistic space battles, right?
Very realistic space battles. The space battles are on all axis, all directions. They deal with gunfire and missiles in terms of kilometers. And so you're not up close, but like if you're within 500 kilometers, you're too close to each other and you can, there's no reaction times and they deal with the gravitational pulls. And in fact, they just came out with a role-playing game for it. And I bought it because I'm getting back into RPGs. And the Expanse RPG and character creation, your character is part of their skills are based on what gravity they grew up in.
Huh. Okay.
because you have three essential groups of people. You have Earth, you have Mars, and you have the Belters, those who are living out past the asteroid belt or in the asteroid belt. In lower gravity, their bodies have changed, and even in the books, there's some kind of debate as to whether they're actually people or still humans, or they've altered enough that they're actually a completely different race. It's implied. There's just some implications in there, not explicitly stated. But anyway, great show, great books.
Well, I wanted to also apologize to you guys and the listeners. The other thing I brought home from CES was a cold.
Yes.
So I cough every now and then.
He does cough every now and
apologize.
then because you got the con crud.
Part of my got the con crud.
I always heard that term con crud, and now on Facebook and Instagram, everybody who's ever been to a convention is talking about it. And I've been to a couple, and I've never gotten it.
You should not have said that out loud.
Yeah, I know.
What's interesting is I've never gotten it when I've worked the cons.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's what it is.
But attending this one, and plus it's 180,000 people, by the way.
Well, you feel like people are just
going.
going around licking the badges or something. So
Exactly.
you could,
Something's going on.
It's like an AR game.
Yes, it's awful. Well,
all right, so we're ready to talk about Mandalorian?
We are ready to
Yes.
talk about The Mandalorian.
Let's do
And
that.
you know what? Let's just give a little bit of a background that a year ago, we learned of a Disney streaming service that was coming out that we thought, do we really need a Disney streaming service?
Do I really want to watch the 101 Dalmatians anytime I want to?
Do I need to watch Apple Dumpling Gang anytime I want? Do I
Of course,
really need an
I called
extra...
it the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yes,
last
you
time.
did. Yes. Do I really need a streaming service? And then we discovered that Lucasfilm and Disney were entering, once again, extending their partnership into a series of live-action Star Wars television shows, which for many of us, we have been waiting ever since the abysmal holiday special.
Which is not on the service.
Which is not on the service and
No.
never will be on the service. We've been waiting for a live-action Star Wars TV show, and we finally have it.
Oh, and do we have it?
do
And
we
we
have it?
have a good one. Because you know what? The Mandalorian, if you have not watched it, your life is less because you have not seen this show.
Absolutely.
So before we dig into the, obviously we all liked it, but before we dig into any kind of minutia or whatever, so PJ or Luke, if you want to go first, what did you really think?
Go ahead.
You sure?
You're ready? Sure.
All right. I really enjoyed it. I liked one of the best things about the series to me is just the different take on the Star Wars universe. We've talked before about like my favorite Star Wars stories when I was reading the books were always the ones that didn't centralize on the Jedi
Outside, yeah.
or on the Skywalker clan proper. And so this series is like a breath of fresh air to me because it's looking at, we've seen episodes of Rebels, episodes of Clone Wars that dealt with the Mandalores or the Mandalorians, the people of Mandalore, but we've never seen it kind of dealt with this heavily and focused and just done so well.
Definitely
that's
done
the thing that really just blew me away is the writing is good, the acting is great. To be able to convey the emotions that he does without ever taking his mask off, it's just impressive.
So that's an interesting point, which we'll get to in a minute, because we all know that the star of the show is Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
However, Pedro is not necessarily the guy in the suit, which we'll get to in a minute.
Okay. I have not heard this. So
You have not heard this.
Well, my feeling on it is it started off, it's really gritty.
Yeah.
And I think I loved how because everything always seems like in the Star Wars universe, very shiny, very explosive, very just grandiose. And this was just more everything. It was just dirty. It was gritty, dirty,
it's the lived-in universe that Lucas was doing in the original movie.
And when you hear about the other TV shows, because obviously there's another one coming out, Kenobi, they're going to do. And so that's another one that's just about what we already know. And to your point, PJ, it was to be able to watch something that I had no clue what it was going to be about. I didn't know who the characters were going to be. I mean, I knew it was a Mandalorian. Of course, in my mind, I'm going, does that mean Boba Fett's going to show up? And that's what other people were thinking. But in fact, they even had to release several articles to say the Mandalorian is not Boba Fett.
Because
All
Boba Fett is not a Mandalorian.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but most people, when they see the
They
images,
don't know that.
They don't know that. In fact, there was even speculation that in the first episode, Boba Fett was in the background.
Yeah, there was a
And
lot of speculation
A lot
on
of
that.
speculation around that. So
No,
anyway,
just a Green Bay.
it did go. There were some slower parts. I think as we talk about the season as a whole, I felt there was some stories that were like, that was all right. It was good. It was a little slow. But for the most part, I greatly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to season 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was very happy, and because you've got this. To me, it reminded me a lot of the Marvel universe in that one, you've got the same director kicking it off. You've got Jon Favreau, who's going to be kicking off. He's the primary writer for it, but a lot is hinging on it, right? When Iron Man came out, everybody was wondering, okay, where's this going to go? There's a lot riding on it, and I think that first episode he did strike a good balance of. Making it exciting and interesting. He didn't put all his cards on the table, which I thought was good. There was the question of what is this show going to be about? For most everybody, I think that has any kind of background in Star Wars, we thought the only way you can do a story about, if you were to do Boba Fett or Mandalorian, is a day in a life of a bounty hunter. But then, of course, it becomes kind of, as we found out, in the middle episodes are kind of like that. It doesn't carry itself very well.
Right.
It's okay. And so the introduction of the big twist in the first episode, which, by the way, we will be in spoilers, and there are people who have not seen this yet. So,
How is that even possible?
well, because
They don't own Disney Plus.
because they don't want us to pay for a streaming service, which I get, or they just haven't been reading. Most everybody knows the big twist, which
Yeah.
is the reveal of the child is not Baby Yoda.
It's Baby
Yes,
Yoda.
I'm not even going to call that. I'm not
it's
even
the
using that
child.
vernacular.
I'm
yeah.
still calling it Baby Yoda.
I'm using the Baby of Yoda species.
Yes, Baby Yoda species, which
That
is
sounds very
interesting.
PC.
Which is interesting that they would do that because it throws the casual fan for a loop.
Oh yeah.
Because they have no idea what the timeline. They don't really explicitly state until much later that this is a couple years after Jedi.
Yeah.
And the baby of Yoda species is 50.
It's
some
50
odd
years old. So, this baby has been around for quite some time.
even before Yoda.
Before, So still in the old Republic, essentially, is this child,
Yeah.
or whatever. Anyway,
The kid.
the child. So I thought it was cool. Now, here's the bit of trivia I was going to throw at you.
'Kay.
Because I love Pedro Pascal. I think he's a great actor.
Trivia.
I was really excited. And you mentioned that his mannerisms and communicating, even the way he walks. Well, Pedro Pascal is in that costume some of the time. But a lot of the time is his stunt man that's in that
Really?
suit. Yes. And his stunt man is a
Needs
guy
a
who goes by
raise.
the name of Brandon Wayne.
So there's the John Wayne connection.
He is
Okay.
John Wayne's grandson.
Really?
Yes. John Wayne's grandson is actually, most of the time in many of the scenes, the guy who's in the suit,
Okay.
which gives him a very distinctive walk.
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially what The Mandalorian is a Western. And that's a fantastic, awesome little aside to
Oh,
know
yeah.
that, some of that acting you see, not just a stuntman in the sense, and I think I'm not saying stuntmen are not actors, but not just in the sense of, hey, we need you to do something dangerous. He's acting in that role. And he even goes, and there's a couple articles about it, and he even talks about, he incorporates his grandfather's walk and pacing and things like that into his portrayal of what is essentially a cowboy.
Yeah, except he doesn't stop and do like the hand thing.
Yeah, he doesn't do that.
Pilgrim.
Yeah. He doesn't
I
like
couldn't
have
do
his
it.
hands
I
at
can't
belt
do a
level.
John
I
Wayne.
can't do John Wayne either.
Yeah, John Wayne is.
So I thought that was kind of cool. It was a little bit disappointing because then you find out, because he's getting all the credit. Pascal's
Yeah,
getting all
yeah.
the credit for it. But if it's John Wayne, and I gotta admit, I kind of have a little bit of a crush on Gina Carano. Always have, and to see her like kicking butt in that show is
Kicking butt and funny.
she's really
hilarious.
funny. And if you followed her career, she's gotten to be a much better actress.
Yeah.
And she's she plays that part really well. Carl Weathers is the only weak link for me. His delivery is a little off. for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, there's something lacking there. It doesn't seem like the same level,
Yeah.
I guess. Or maybe he's not as fully invested.
Maybe I
in
just
the
feel like
character.
I'm expecting Dylan from Predator or something like that. And what I'm getting is like almost
It's
this eloquent language.
Apollo Creed for that matter.
Apollo Creed or something.
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
mean,
getting
just-
this weird delivery.
He's just very laid back and I don't know. It doesn't seem
He uses big
as
words. He
engaged.
uses big words, which is not a problem. He uses big words, but he's supposed to be the head of the Bounty Hunters Guild. Like he's supposed to be a criminal.
Well, and I kind of felt like the last episode, for again I guess spoiler alert. I mean, I don't know if we talk about it, but he didn't really even have much of a command at that point either. He just seemed to be following the lead and not really. To your point, if he's the director of the guild, if he's the big man, he should be a guy that's
he should be doing something, and maybe he's not necessarily the guy in charge, or we'll find out more.
Do you think it's because he's too well known for other characters, and maybe that's where you sort of have a hard time buying him in this universe?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that could be. It was the same thing having Werner Herzog in there. Okay, he's the client. All I can see is Werner Herzog. I'm sitting there going, okay, because I've seen so many documentaries where he narrates. And I'm like, that's all I could focus, which I loved. I thought he did a great job. I love the fact that he was in this show. And because he brings that delivery that's just like, it's just off enough.
Yeah.
But at the same time.
And him I bought in
I
that
could buy.
universe.
Yeah, I could too.
Although you could definitely tell at the end he was a Latke. So,
the big reveal of our big bad guy was great, and of course.
So let me ask a quick question before we say anything else: is how spoiler are we going to get?
There's going to be a warning. Like if you want to, this is our recap, so we're spoilery. We're not hiding anything.
Okay, so do we want to talk about the final
reveal,
scene,
the
or
final
do we
scene?
want to bring that
we'll
later?
get to that in a minute.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to go into super detail. We can
because
just
I really want to talk about that
as things pop up. I did like what I liked, and I know you guys like this too. The cameos in this show are hilarious, and you really have to, if you don't know, if you don't recognize a lot of actors, you may have to go back and watch and really spot them. But Clancy Brown, one of my favorite bad guys ever of all time, the Kurgan from Highlander, the head guard in Shawshank. I'll always love his stuff. Plays what kind of alien was he again? I forget.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but he's got the horns and
got
fire does not impact him. And I'm sorry, Star Wars people, that I forgot what kind of alien he is.
Not a real fan.
Not a real fan. You got Jason Sudeikis in the last episode punching Yoda or punching the child, which was really funny. And that's Taika Waititi. Directing, but who's also the voice of IG-11.
Which was a great turn.
Great turn for him to do that. And he's now going to be directing a Star Wars movie, we know. So that will be awesome.
Well, and did you see the thing that came out where Jon Favreau was like, hey, when you hit the child, that costs about $5 million to make. So maybe...
not full strength.
Yeah, maybe pull the punch a little.
Well, and I think all he said was, just think about that. That thing costs $5 million.
A Davaronian. Davaronian?
Davaronian. Okay, that's right.
DEV.
Yeah.
So
you have your Twi'leks. You have all those. There's always lots of them. That makes me wonder if they're like the second most numerous race in the Star Wars universe of the Twi'leks, because I think they're everywhere. Huh?
Seems to be.
But yeah, I mean, it was, those little, okay, so my favorite cameo, this is my favorite cameo in the whole show, is the troop transport in the background that never made it into a movie but was a toy.
It was a toy.
That's when I lost it in the middle of that, when it rolled up in the back, and a lot of us didn't notice it. I knew a lot of people who didn't notice it, but the minute I saw it, I jumped up and I was like, oh my gosh, because even as a kid, I kind of thought it was the dumbest toy. I didn't think it was a very cool toy, but the fact that he put it in the show is amazing.
I actually loved how they had 3 directors as X-Wing pilots.
Yes.
It just kind of felt like it got thrown in there. It's kind of like, okay, we'll let these guys do this. And, Deborah Chow and Rick and Dave Filoni, being the acting wasn't all that awesome, but it still seemed pretty cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, but at the same time, you think Filoni's written so many great pieces of Star Wars lore. I think his weakness was live action directing. His episode was one of the ones I'd liked the least. But I mean, it's like, you think it's like, to get to sit in an X-Wing, he had to be losing his mind.
Oh, definitely. I would have been.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, I just love how I've seen plenty of different interviews. Like Samuel L. Jackson did an interview where he talked about hey, I want to be in a Star Wars movie, and he's just like, just make me a stormtrooper or whatever, and how people are stormtroopers or scout troopers like Jason Sudeikis and Adam Pally, but also like Daniel Craig in Force Awakens.
The cutscene from Last Jedi with Tom Hardy. Which is cut out, but it's a funny scene.
And so it's great that they could have these roles for people in scout trooper outfits or stormtrooper outfits, and you'd never know it was them.
Yeah,
that's funny.
It was just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I've talked to people like I can't see it or I don't have it. I'm so tempted to like hand out my Disney Plus account to people. Just take it for a week. I think the big complaint at the beginning was the episodes were so short.
Tell them to get a trial. You get a week.
Get a trial.
I mean, you could binge
it.
this thing in a week easy.
You're talking like 28 minutes for some of them, and they're not long. And I think but I think that was to its benefit.
I do too,
because you can't. It's a tight story in a lot of episodes, and there's not enough time to really lose the plot. Though I did think a little bit of the in-between. Now in hindsight, you figure, okay, these make more sense.
Right.
In the serial release kind, because that was one thing Disney did, was they did not release it as a fully bingeable series right away. They had a release schedule, which I thought was fun, because then it became must-see TV, right? It was,
definitely.
We're going to sit down. And
I liked it that way.
I was really surprised by how many people got into the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of it, is the first episode was so good.
Well, because you didn't get behind.
No, you didn't get behind.
If they Netflix it and release all 8 episodes right at once, and all your friends are talking about episodes 7 and 8 and the series finale, and you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, that gets frustrating. So I like that it was once.
Well,
a
it
week.
brought back water cooler TV.
It
brought back standing around talking about it, and we did. We stood in the office. We talked about it.
Exactly.
Had a lot of fun with it.
But it's definitely like my son watching Stranger Things, the last Stranger Things season. He watched it all on one Saturday, just all the way through. And I even watched Stranger Things episodically because I just had to in order to be able to absorb the material.
Yeah, same.
And so same with Mandalorian. I was able to watch each episode and then just absorb it and understand it and maybe watch it one more time before the next one came out. And so I enjoyed the length of each episode as well. It wasn't like a whole hour.
Yeah.
So you could watch it during a lunch hour, or you could watch it, when you wanted to, and it was only like 40 minutes. So they were pretty good.
See, I'm curious, Luke, having been to Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
I'm wondering, because season 2, the big question is, okay, is this going to lead us into a tie in to Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy? And I think there is probably something coming that will bridge that gap.
I'm sure.
I'm curious if we're going to start seeing that in Disney at Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, I'm sure. And they also have the opening of the new hotel.
Oh,
so
that's right.
When the hotel opens, I'm sure that's going to have some tie-in. It's got to.
What I do like as well, and they did this in the cartoons, but for the live-action viewer, is they opened up the Mandalorian lore, which we didn't have before. We didn't fully understand it. And now, at this point in the show, the Mandalorians are more of a creed. He says that we're a creed and not necessarily a group of race of people.
Right.
Which I thought was interesting. I do love the fact that they all have to earn their signet. And from the Armorer is a great, awesome character, which I hope we see more of.
Yeah.
And earn their jetpack or whatever.
Yeah, what was it? What's the jetpack?
The actual name for it, but
I forget the What were the missiles? The whistling or something like that. Yeah. My son really liked those, and he was very intent on making sure when the Armorer said, "I don't have many of these." And every time he used it, my son was like, "Wait, you don't have many of those?
Don't keep using those." And then when he fired off like 5 of them, by accident, it was like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah. I just thought. Now, I my only thing was like, man, you're really overusing that flamethrower. It's amazing in Star Wars universe, you can use a flamethrower and nobody catches on fire.
I mean, I did like the line though. Which episode was it? Second episode or whatever? When he looked at the jetpack and he's like, "Man, I gotta get me."
Oh, it was like I think it was the third. Yeah, because it was that was the what was it where he breaks the code.
Right.
Yeah, had a great, and I loved the names. I loved the titles. I loved the end credits with the art, the production art.
Oh yeah, that was really cool.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Those are really neat.
The music's great.
The music was good. I didn't like it at first.
Yeah.
But it grew on me. I grew on me.
Yeah, I remember you commenting on that.
Yeah,
early.
and after a while, I was like, okay, I do like this. I did not. I was really upset that Nick Nolte is not going to be on the show anymore.
Yeah, it's a bummer. He did great.
He did great. Quill was a great character.
He's a great character. Never took payment for anything.
Nope. Was a self-sacrificing hero.
Self-sacrificing hero.
Yes, and rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
So yeah, I mean, I thought overall, and we could go on all night long, but we're at 40 minutes.
All right. So before
we
close
go, so any last thoughts on it? I do want to.
So at the end,
Uh-huh.
where the big bad, and I don't remember his name.
It's Moff Gideon.
Yeah. That's right.
Giancarlo Esposito.
So he gets out of the TIE fighter. We're supposed to believe that's the Darksaber,
It
right?
is it's got to be. There's, as I recall, there's only one Darksaber.
Right.
And
Bo-Katan.
and
I mean, as soon
whoever
as they start slicing it,
and
I'm like,
whoever
that's-
holds the Darksaber, what rules the Mandalorians, right?
Mandalore, yeah.
So, huh?
I know. Well, that was, and I never watched Clone Wars. I need to
Okay.
go back and watch it. I never watched
But
Clone
that was
Wars.
more in Rebels. That
Was it more in
'cause
Rebels?
Sabine had.
But we're gonna see it in the new season of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Is the Siege of Mandalore, and so we'll see more of that. But yes, you're right. It was Rebels.
In Rebels, Sabine got the Darksaber, and that's how she sort of took up the leadership
Okay.
of the Mandalore. So,
Yeah. I was also interested in the fact that he had Death Troopers.
He did
Yes.
have Death
Those
Troopers.
Death
He did
Troopers
have
were
Death
not something
Troopers.
you had seen
Yeah.
Before
until
Rogue
then,
One.
Before Rogue One.
So-
and then after Rogue One, virtually, all the movies after that, no Death Troopers, and then here's the Death Troopers
Yeah,
again.
yeah. Well, they
So-
did create. It did fix some of the plot holes created by Force Awakens with the Battle of Jakku.
It's true.
Because we thought the Empire ended in Jedi, and Cara Dune comes in and says, "Well, basically they were mopping up."
yeah.
It ended then, but we were mopping up the resistance. And now that we know in this show that there are pockets of Imperials who are still, which ultimately we know where it's headed. This is
Right.
the birth of the First Order.
Right, exactly.
Right. These pockets of Imperials, and we'll get talking about that when we sit down to talk about Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
We're a little bit behind on getting that out, but we're going to talk about that. So that is a good setup for kind of the bridge. And I think while I have not been fully satisfied with the sequel trilogy, I think now Disney can go back and kind of, fill some of those gaps in.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited to see where they go.
I'm
next.
pumped. It's
I'm
going to be
pumped.
great.
Pumped for season 2.
I feel like they ended right, leaving you wanting more, ready for more, and excited about what they're
Well,
going to bring.
yeah, and knowing that, there's a nice big. It wasn't a cliffhanger necessarily, but it had a nice stinger with the
Yeah.
Darksaber.
Yeah. I liked it.
Well, and you did know that obviously Moff Gideon was going to live, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you
he
saw
had to.
you saw the X-wing you saw the TIE fighter go down, and you're like, okay, but he's not dead.
I do
Yeah.
have one legitimate question, okay? Like,
Yeah,
when you're sitting in a TIE fighter, there's nothing around you but instrumentation.
exactly.
It's a big ball with instrumentation
Circuits.
around you.
Yeah.
So how do you not die?
Yeah, and that'll probably be a discussion
same-
for Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
as
Same
well.
with
yes.
Force Awakens, like when Finn crashes. Like, how do you not die in a TIE fighter crash? I just don't get it. But hey,
because they roll.
They roll. It's like a Volvo.
We saw that in Force Awakens.
Yes.
So
When
the
she takes them.
so the TIE fighters were built by Norwegians.
Yes, they were.
Yes,
'Cause-
the Volvo.
Yes, they just roll.
They just roll.
Oh my gosh! All right.
I was thinking we were going to get some sort of Demolition Man, like Insta Foam kind of
Oh,
thing.
that would be. Oh, yeah, where he turns into the cannoli. All right. Well, hey, you know what? If you want to keep up with everything in the Geekosphere, you can check us out at thegeekosphere.net, where PJ is regularly posting his reviews of video games and whatnot, and we
Doing my best.
put our thoughts on there.
I should
each
be
of us.
posting more.
And we need to post more. Luke and I can do that. You can also check us out on Instagram. Who knows what our Instagram address is?
I'm looking it up as we speak.
Yeah, we're looking it up as we speak because
Chirp, chirp.
I should have that in front of me,
chirp.
and I don't have it in front of me.
The Geekosphere Podcast.
The Geekosphere Podcast. That's where you can find us. We'll get that right one day.
We will.
And you can find us on
Twitter.
at the Geekosphere.
Geekosphere Podcast at the Geekosphere.
Yes, Geekosphere Podcast at the Geekosphere. We're really good at that. Don't worry about it. I'm terrible at remembering things. But you go to our website. You can email us any questions, your thoughts on The Mandalorian, anything you want us to talk about.
Podcast at thegeekosphere.net.
Podcast at thegeekosphere.net.
PJ
It will
had
go
that
to
ready.
us. And then PJ had that in his pocket ready to pull that out.
There goes a cough.
There goes the cough. And hey, you know what? Thanks for listening. And we have spoken.
started.